The auction. They sold her like property. But one human fought back. The sky of Zarnak 5 was red like fire. Heavy clouds moved slowly, covering the sun. The city below was made of tall black towers, sharp like knives. Flying ships buzzed through the air, leaving trails of green smoke behind them. Aliens of many shapes and sizes walked in the streets, dressed in gold and steel. This was not a world of peace. This was a world of power, money, and control. In the center of the city stood a large, dome-shaped building. Its walls were made of black glass and red lights glowed around its edges. Guards with glowing eyes stood at the entrance, holding shock spears in their hands. This was the market hall, a place where living beings were bought and sold. Today, a special auction was happening inside. Today, they were selling humans. Inside the hall, the air was cold and the light was dim. Hundreds of aliens sat in seats shaped like claws, all facing a raised platform. They talked in low voices, some laughing, others already placing bets. Each one held a screen showing the names, ages, and prices of the slaves. On the stage, behind a metal cage, stood a human girl. Her name was Arya, and she was just 17 years old. Her hands were tied, her feet bare, her brown hair tangled, her eyes were tired but alert, her body thin but not broken. She looked at the crowd and felt a cold fear in her chest. They looked at her like an object, not like a person. She had seen others before her, sold to cruel masters, never to return. She knew what was coming, but she refused to beg. Arya stood tall, even in chains. The auctioneer stepped forward, a fat green alien with 4 eyes and a wide mouth. He wore a shiny robe and smiled as he began to speak. Here she is, human female, young and healthy, strong mind, no disease, he said loudly. Look at her muscles, clean skin, and sharp senses. Perfect for work or pleasure. The crowd leaned forward, eyes glowing. Let's start at 500 credits, he said. 500, shouted a thin alien with a snake-like neck. 700, came a call from the back. 900, yelled another with gold rings in his nose. Arya closed her eyes for a moment, wishing it was all a dream. But it was not a dream. It was her reality. The auctioneer smiled wider, enjoying the rising numbers. 1,000 credits. 1,200. 1,500. The room was heating up, full of laughter and greed. Arya felt her breath quicken, her heart pounding in her chest. Then, suddenly, a new voice broke the noise. 10,000 credits. The hall went silent, all heads turned. In the shadows near the back door stood a tall man. He wore a long black coat and a dark hood that covered his face. He was human, but something about him was different. He stood tall, calm, and unafraid. His voice had no fear, no anger, just power. The auctioneer blinked in surprise. Did you say 10,000? The man nodded once, slowly. Some aliens laughed, thinking it was a joke. Others looked nervous, sensing danger. No one else made another bid. Sold! The auctioneer shouted, hitting the metal gong. The sound echoed across the hall like thunder. Arya opened her eyes, confused. She had expected to be sold to another monster, but this man, this strange human, didn't act like the others. 2 guards opened the cage and brought her forward. The man stepped closer, handing a small silver card to the auctioneer. Payment confirmed, the alien said, still watching the man with suspicion. The man turned to Arya and gently cut her rope with a small blade. She flinched, expecting pain, but he only said, "You're coming with me." They walked out together, silent. The other aliens stared at them as they passed, some angry, some afraid. Arya looked up at the man, trying to speak, but no words came out. He didn't look at her, only kept walking, fast and focused. Once they were outside, the man turned down a dark alley and stopped. He looked around, then finally pulled back his hood. His face was scarred, his eyes sharp and full of fire. "You don't know me," he said, "but I've been looking for you." Arya frowned, confused and scared. "Why?" she whispered. The man took a deep breath and said, "Because I didn't come to buy you. I came to start a war." The buyer with no name, he didn't come to buy her. He came to burn their system down. The night air of Zarnak 5 was colder now. The twin moons rose slowly over the black towers, casting long shadows through the narrow streets. Somewhere in the back alleys of the city, a human girl followed a man she did not know. Her wrists were free, but her mind was still trapped in fear. Her name was Arya, and she had been sold like property just hours ago. But this man, this strange, silent man, had bought her without asking her name. He had paid more than any creature in that room, and now he was walking fast through the dark, with her behind him like a ghost. "Where are you taking me?" she finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. The man didn't stop walking. "Somewhere safe," he said. "Why did you buy me?" she asked again. The man turned to her and replied, "I didn't." Then he looked ahead and kept moving, leaving only confusion in the air. They stopped at a rusted metal door between two broken buildings. The man tapped a code into a hidden panel. With a soft hiss, the door opened, revealing a hidden lift. They stepped inside, and the door closed behind them. Silence surrounded them as the lift sank deep underground. Arya kept glancing at him. His arms were full of old scars, his coat covered in dust. He didn't speak, but his presence filled the space like thunder. She felt fear, but also something else. A strange sense of safety. The lift opened into a dark tunnel lit by dim yellow lights. Strange machines lined the walls, and she saw weapons, maps, and metal suits half-built. It looked like a war bunker. "Who are you?" Arya asked again, louder this time. The man stopped walking and turned slowly. "I used to have a name," he said, "but names don't matter anymore. They erased mine when I refused to kneel." He walked to a table and picked up a small glowing orb. With one tap, it projected a hologram of the galaxy. Stars lit up, but many planets blinked red. "Every red mark you see," he said, "is a planet where humans are still being sold. They are pets, workers, toys, experiments, and no one fights for them." He turned to her, eyes burning. "Until now." Arya took a step back, shocked. You're going to fight them all?" "I already started," he replied. "You're just the first step." She looked at the screens and saw pictures of other humans, some dead, some missing, her stomach twisted, her heart heavy. She had lived in chains so long she forgot what freedom even felt like. And now this man, this soldier without a name, wanted to light a fire across the stars. "Why me?" she asked, voice shaking. "I'm not special." "You survived," he said, walking closer. "They broke many, but not you. You stood on that stage in front of monsters and didn't cry. People like you, they don't just survive. They lead." Arya looked away, unsure of what to say. "I don't know how to fight," she whispered. "You'll learn," he replied. Then the alarms went off. A sharp buzzing sound echoed through the tunnels. The man rushed to the wall and checked a blinking red screen. "Damn," he muttered. "They found us." "Who?" Arya asked, already scared again. "The hunters," he said, loading a weapon from the wall. "They track humans who rebel and kill them without trial. Stay behind me." Above them, the lift door burst open with a loud crash. Heavy metal boots stomped down the tunnel. Arya hid behind a crate, her heart racing. She peeked and saw 4 tall alien soldiers in black armor, with glowing red visors and shock rifles. They moved like machines, fast and deadly. The man moved too, but he didn't run. He didn't hide. He attacked. He moved like a shadow, silent and sharp. His gun fired a blue beam that tore through the first hunter. He dodged bullets, rolled, and kicked one straight into a wall. Another tried to stab him. He twisted the blade away and snapped its neck in one clean motion. The last hunter fired wildly, but the man leapt from the shadows and drove a knife through its chest. The fight was over in seconds. Arya couldn't breathe. She had never seen a human fight like that. Not with fear, but with fury. Not like prey, but like a predator. He stood over the bodies, breathing hard. "More will come," he said, "but so will others like us." He walked over to her and offered his hand. "You can run," he said, "or you can rise." Arya stared at his hand, and for the first time in years, she felt a small spark inside her. A spark of anger, of hope, of purpose. She took his hand, and everything changed. Escape from Zarnak. One girl just wanted freedom. But now she's running with a human weapon. The sirens didn't stop. They screamed through the tunnels like angry spirits. Above them, a city. Search drones took flight, their red eyes scanning every shadow. Inside the bunker, Rek and Arya were already moving. No time to think, no time to rest. Zarnak 5 had found them, and it wasn't going to let them leave alive. Rek grabbed a black bag from under the floor. Inside it were weapons, tools, and something wrapped in old human cloth. A folded flag. He didn't speak. He didn't explain. He only looked at Arya and said, We leave now. Arya followed, heart pounding like thunder. They ran through an underground corridor that led to a half-broken tunnel system. The lights flickered above them, and the sound of boots echoed behind. Not just any boots. Alien enforcers. The kind that killed without asking questions. Arya had never run this fast before. Her lungs burned, her legs ached, but she didn't stop, because Rek didn't stop. He moved like he was born in war. Every corner they turned, every door they passed, he was 5 steps ahead. His instincts were like machines. Arya could barely keep up, but she knew one thing. If she lost him, she was dead. Above them, the city was on alert. Giant screens on the towers showed Rek's face. Wanted, it read. Dead or alive. A human with a price higher than a starship. And now, Arya was with him. They reached a sewer exit that opened into an alley near the city's lower port. The night was thick with smoke, and the sky glowed red. Rek stopped and pulled out a small device. He tapped it once. It showed a ship icon and a countdown. Evac ship arrives in 12 minutes, he said. Until then, we survive. Arya looked around, breathing fast. What if they catch us? She asked. Rek stared at her, eyes calm but sharp. Then we fight. The sound of engines roared above them. 4 black drones appeared in the sky, scanning down with beams of white light. Rek grabbed Arya's arm and pulled her into an old cargo storage yard. They ducked behind crates as the lights passed over them. Arya closed her eyes, holding her breath. One wrong move and they'd be seen. One sound and she'd die. But the drones passed. For now. They moved again, this time slower, closer to the port wall. The area was crawling with patrols, aliens armed with plasma rifles. And then, the worst sound Arya had ever heard, a deep metallic howl echoed through the sky. Rek froze in place. His jaw tightened. No, he whispered. What is it? Arya asked. They brought a Gore-class hunter, Rek said. A what? A biomech assassin, he said. They only deploy one when they expect resistance. It doesn't hunt like a soldier. It hunts like death. As if summoned by his words, a massive shape landed nearby, 10 feet tall, black armor with glowing red veins, no face, just sensors and blades. It walked on 2 legs but moved like liquid metal. It was made to kill humans. Fast, quiet, and without mercy. Rek slowly reached for his pulse blade. Keep moving toward the shipyard, he said. Don't stop, no matter what. Arya grabbed his arm. What about you? Rek looked at her for a second that felt like forever. Tell the others I didn't run, he said. Tell them humans fight back now. And before she could argue, he was gone, running straight toward the monster. Arya wanted to scream, wanted to help, but she did what he said. She ran. Behind her, the sounds of metal hitting metal echoed through the alleys. The gore roared. Rek shouted, and then there was fire. Something exploded, shaking the ground beneath her. She didn't stop. She couldn't. She reached the edge of the port wall where a small ship hovered, hidden between scrap towers. A human face looked out from the cockpit. A woman with short hair and a scar over her eye. You Arya? She asked. Arya nodded, almost falling from exhaustion. Get in, the pilot said. We don't have long. As the ship lifted, Arya looked back. Smoke rose from the district behind them. She couldn't see Rek, but she knew. He was still fighting, still buying her time, still showing. The galaxy that humans were not slaves anymore. They were fire, and fire spreads. The truth about Rek. They thought he was dead, but he became something worse. Awake, the ship flew through the sky like a silent shadow. Arya sat in the back, staring out of the window. Zarnak 5 was shrinking behind them. A world of chains, smoke, and death. But her thoughts were not on the planet, they were on Rek. The man who turned back to fight a monster so she could fly. The man who didn't even tell her his real name. Did he make it? She asked the pilot, voice shaking. The woman glanced at her. No signals, no tracker, nothing, she replied. Arya's heart dropped. He told me he'd start a war, she whispered. The pilot smiled a little. He already did. The ship entered hyperspeed, lights stretching like rivers of color outside the windows. Arya leaned back, her eyes heavy but her mind full. Questions burned inside her. Who was Rek? Why could he fight like that? Why did the aliens fear him more than any army? The ship landed on a cold moon called Drelos 7, an abandoned mining base now turned into a secret human outpost. Inside were other humans, scared, angry, tough, all survivors. They looked at Arya with curiosity. She looked at them with quiet fire. She wasn't just a rescued girl now, she was the one Rex saved, and that made her someone. A man named Kelos, the leader of the outpost, took her to a small chamber. The room was dark, lit only by the blue glow of an old terminal. Kelos was old, his face covered in scars. He moved slowly, but his eyes were sharp. "Rex saved you?" he asked. Arya nodded. Kelos sat down and took a deep breath. "Then you deserve to know the truth." He tapped a button and the screen lit up. A file opened marked classified, REK7. On the screen was a photo. It was Rek, younger, in a military suit with Earth's flag on his shoulder. Below his name it said, Rek, Rapid Engagement Kill Unit 7, terminated 38 years ago. Arya blinked, confused. "Terminated?" she asked. Kelos nodded. He was part of a secret Earth program during the First Alien War. "We created super soldiers, spliced with alien DNA, trained in every weapon, every tactic. Rek was the best, but something went wrong. Earth lost the war," Kelos said, voice hard. "The Council of Nine took control. Humans were declared inferiors, property. And the soldiers we built? They were hunted, erased. Rek died in the records. But he didn't die in truth." Arya stared at the screen, unable to speak. "He survived," she whispered. "He survived," Kelos repeated. "And now he fights alone, striking here, burning their labs, freeing our people. He is not just a man anymore. He is a myth with a heartbeat." Arya stood there, shaking, a storm of thoughts hitting her at once. "He told me I would lead," she said. Kelos looked at her. "Then lead," he replied. "The galaxy needs more than one flame." Suddenly the base lights flickered. A voice echoed through the hallway. "Incoming transmission. Encrypted signal." Kelos ran to the terminal, typing fast. A static-filled screen appeared. Then a voice, broken but clear. "This is Rek." "He's alive," Arya gasped. The screen cleared for a second, showing Rek's bloodied face. He was breathing hard, his eyes locked onto the camera. "I'm on Corin 3, he said. "Captured but not broken. They're building something worse." Then static again. Arya stepped forward. "What are they building?" The audio snapped back for a moment. "They found a way to erase human memory," Rek said. "They plan to turn humans into empty shells, workers with no names, no past, no soul. You have to stop, Tom." Hem. Then the signal died. Kelos slammed the terminal. "They've been testing mind-cleansing tech on slave worlds," he said. "If they succeed, the rebellion is over before it begins." Arya clenched her fists. "No," she said, her voice steady. "Rek bought me time. Now, I'll buy him hope." She turned to the others in the base. Some looked unsure, some looked afraid, but a few nodded slowly. One woman stepped forward with a rifle. "I'll follow," she said. Then another. Then 5 more. Then 10. Arya stood in front of them. She had no training, no title, no armor, but she had a reason. And sometimes, one reason was enough to move mountains or burn empires. She looked at Kelos. "What do we have?" "Half a ship, some stolen gear, old maps," he said. Arya smiled. "Then we have enough. Rise of the Resistance." One girl was saved. Now she's saving thousands, one fire at a time. The ship rattled as it broke through the upper atmosphere of Corin 3. Clouds spun outside like smoke, and the surface below was gray and cracked. It didn't look like a planet. It looked like a prison made from metal and ash, and buried deep inside was Rek. Arya stood at the front of the stolen ship. Her hands gripped the control rail as she looked down at the slave camps. Her eyes were calm, but fire burned behind them. She was no longer a caged girl. She was now something else, a symbol, a spark. And sparks, when given wind, become wildfires. Behind her stood 7 fighters, all human, all willing to die for the mission. Kalos had said it was suicide, but Arya said, if we don't fight now, there will be nothing left to fight for. They followed her not because of her weapons, they followed her because of her will. The plan was dangerous. Drop into the security blind zone, break into the mine wipe facility, free the captives, destroy the machines, and get out before orbital drones react. So simple on paper, impossible in real life, unless you were human and tired of running. The ship lowered into a canyon, hiding from radar. Then it opened its lower hatch. Arya and her team dropped to the ground, rolling into cover like shadows. Guns ready, hearts racing, eyes scanning. They moved fast, avoiding patrols, sliding under fences. Arya had memorized the map. Every wall, every guard rotation, every blind spot. She wasn't just surviving now, she was planning, leading, striking. The facility was built into the rocks, a fortress of steel and silence. Inside were hundreds of captured humans, most of them unaware they were even prisoners. Their minds half wiped, their eyes empty. Machines hummed around them, stealing names, memories, dreams. Arya felt sick as she looked through the glass walls. This is what they want all of us to become, she whispered. No past, no fight, no soul. Kellis's voice crackled in her ear. Get in, get them out, and set the core to burn. Arya nodded once, then raised her hand to signal the team. They split up. 2 to disable the cameras, 2 to breach the cells, 3 to guard the exits. She went for the control room, alone. The hallways were tight, lit with pulsing red lights. Alien workers didn't expect humans here. Not with guns, not with purpose. Arya took them down fast, silent, swift. She reached the main server room and placed a pulse charge on the data core. This was the heart of their system, where stolen minds were stored. She looked at the cables, the lights, the screens showing erased lives. Then she pressed the trigger. The explosion shook the hallway like thunder. Alarms screamed across the base. Screams echoed from the cells as humans began to wake. Names returned. Memories flooded back. Some cried, some collapsed, some shouted in rage. Arya ran to them, shouting, "You're free! Run! Fight if you can! Live if you must!" Then a sound made her freeze. A voice from the hallway, weak but clear. "Ari!" She turned and saw him, broken, bloody, but standing, Rek. He had escaped his cell, his hands still in chains but his eyes full of fire. "You came," he said. "I said I would," she replied. Rek gave a rare smile. "And I said you'd lead." They didn't have time for words. The building was collapsing from inside, fires spreading, metal groaning. Reinforcements were closing in. Hundreds of humans were running for the exits. Their first taste of freedom in years. Arya shouted, guided, helped them all. She wasn't just a rebel now. She was a leader. A voice they listened to, a name they would remember. By the time they reached the surface, the base was burning behind them. Ships had arrived to extract them. Stolen crafts flown by other rebels across the galaxy. Arya and Rek boarded last. As the ship lifted off, she looked down at the firestorm below. She had done it. She had lit the first fire of many. Inside the ship, people gathered around her. Some thanked her. Others simply stared, unsure if she was real. One child touched her hand and said, "You saved us." Arya didn't know what to say, so she only nodded and held his hand tighter. But in the shadows of another star system, someone else watched the footage. A powerful alien commander stared at the screen showing Arya's face. "She's the one," he said. "Kill her before she becomes a legend. Betrayal and blood." She built a fire, but every flame casts a shadow. The stars above Varela Base burned brighter than usual, but Arya didn't look up. She stood inside a dark war room facing a glowing map of the galaxy. More red dots had turned blue, more humans were free, more worlds were rising, and yet something felt wrong, like a string pulled too tight, like a knife hidden behind a smile. Rek leaned against the wall, still healing from the prison on Corin 3. His body was slower now, but his mind, sharper than ever. "You've done more in 3 weeks than we managed in 3 years, he said. Arya didn't answer. She was focused on the next mission, Soren Prime. A world where humans were turned into soldiers, then erased, not just in memory, in biology, alien tech that could rewrite DNA, make a human forget they were ever human. They couldn't allow that, not ever. Behind them, the resistance had grown. More cells, more ships, more voices, and with growth came noise. With noise came danger. They launched for Soren Prime the next morning, a stealth team of 10, led by Arya and Rek. Among them was Kale, a tech specialist from Drelos 7. He was quiet, clever, loyal. Or so they believed. The landing was perfect. The infiltration was smooth. The labs were colder than expected. Rows and rows of pods filled with sleeping humans. Their eyes open but minds shut. Machines whispered around them, changing blood, rewriting memory, turning people into ghosts. Arya wanted to scream. Instead, she planted the explosives. They would free them, or bury them. Either was better than this, but just before detonation something happened. The lights flickered red, the doors sealed shut, gas hissed from the vents above. "Ambush!" Rex shouted, raising his weapon, but the betrayal had already happened. Kale stood behind them, holding the detonator in his hand. But it wasn't. Armed, it was a signal beacon, calling alien troops straight to them. Arya froze, her blood like ice. "Why?" she asked. Kale's eyes were sad but steady. "You're winning," he said, "and they're scared. They offered me something no war could give. My sister, alive, restored." "Slavery for a sister?" Rek barked. Kale didn't flinch. "You don't know what I've lost," he said. "You don't know what they promised me." The doors exploded open. Troops poured in. Alien elites, armed with shock blasters and null grenades. The fight was brutal, bloody, and fast. 2 resistance fighters were shot in the first minute. One screamed as a laser tore through his side. Another vanished under a flash of plasma. Rek and Arya fought back to back. But Kale slipped away in the chaos. Gone into the smoke. Gone with their escape codes. Rek was hit. A stun round to the chest. He dropped hard, breathing but unable to move. Arya dragged him behind a console, her face full of fury. She tapped her comm, screaming, "Get us out! Emergency evac now!" But static answered her. Kale had jammed the signal. They were alone. The aliens closed in. Blasters lit the air like lightning. Arya covered Rek with her body, shielding him. She didn't feel the first hit, or the second. Only fire, only pain. But she didn't move. She didn't fall. Because behind her, Rek stirred. He rose, bleeding, shaking, but alive. "You shouldn't have stayed," he said. "I'm not leaving you again," she replied. They stood side by side, 2 humans covered in blood, defying an army. And then, from above, an explosion. A ship broke through the lab ceiling. Stolen tech, human hands. Kalos had come. He had tracked their signal manually. The resistance wasn't just following Arya now. They were watching over her, protecting her as she protected them. A rope dropped. Rek threw Arya upward, then climbed behind her. The lab below burned. The gas tanks ignited. The DNA pods melted. The project was gone. Back on the ship, Arya collapsed. Blood soaked her jacket, but her eyes stayed open. She looked up at Kalos and said only one thing. "Kale." Kalos nodded. "He'll pay," he said. But Arya wasn't thinking about revenge. She was thinking about trust and how fragile it was, how dangerous it had become. She had built something powerful, and now someone had touched it with poison. The galaxy was watching her now, watching the girl who burned chains. But now, they would also watch who stood beside her, because the war was no longer just against aliens, it was against the traitors within. Freedom isn't given. They tried to break her, erase him, and burn the resistance. But humanity doesn't die, it fights. The sky over Zarnak Prime was black, not from night but from ships. Thousands of resistance fighters, stolen vessels, hacked drones, all moving into position. It was the final day, the last stand, the end of the war, or the end of them. Inside the command ship, Arya stood in silence, her body still healing, her mind sharpened by betrayal, loss, and blood. Across from her sat Kalos, tired but ready. Beside her stood Rek, armored again, his blade back on his side. They weren't just rebels now, they were symbols. The galaxy knew their faces, the aliens feared their names. But fear wasn't enough anymore. Now they needed to finish it. Their target wasn't just a base, it was the core spire, a tower built into the heart of the planet, where alien overlords met, ruled, and commanded all slave systems, where Kale had gone, where they were building something worse than death. A frequency that could erase rebellion from the human mind. Not pain, not chains, just silence. permanent, obedient silence. Arya looked at Rek. If we fail, she said, they won't just win. They'll make us forget we ever fought. Rek didn't blink. Then we don't fail. The battle began in the upper orbit. Explosions lit the blackness like stars being born and dying. Resistance fighters dove into enemy lines. For every ship they lost, 2 more arrived from hidden allies. The galaxy wasn't just watching anymore. It was joining. Arya's dropship cut through the flames and smoke. She led the first strike unit, a team of humans who had nothing left to lose. They landed at the base of the spire, guns ready, eyes full of rage. Alien guards waited. Armored giants, fast, brutal, silent. The ground became fire, steel against steel, blood against blood. Rek moved like he did in Legends, a storm in human shape. Every alien that stood before him fell, but there were too many, and behind them, the door to the spire waited, sealed shut with alien tech. Arya ran to it, placed the last remaining pulse charge. The explosion rocked the structure. The doors cracked open. They ran inside, climbing steel staircases that screamed under their boots, upward, higher, toward the signal tower at the top, where Kael waited. The halls were empty, too empty, a trap. Suddenly the lights dimmed, gas hissed from the vents. Again, Rek covered Arya's face with his sleeve. This is custom, he growled. They designed it for us. They're scared of us now, Arya said, coughing through the smoke. Good. They burst into the control chamber, and there he was, Kael, standing in front of the signal generator, calm, clean, untouched, surrounded by alien elites. His eyes were hollow, his voice smooth. I told you I'd trade everything for my sister, he said. They delivered. Arya stepped forward. They delivered lies, she said. They rewired her just like the others. She remembers you, Kael said. She smiles now. No, Rek growled. She obeys now. The signal tower began to pulse, a hum that shook the bones. Across the galaxy, humans paused, ears ringing, eyes fogging. The signal was working. Arya screamed, "Shut it down!" Rek charged, cutting through 2 guards. Arya tackled Kael, knocking him to the floor. He didn't fight. He smiled. You won battles, he whispered, but they own the sky. I don't need the sky, Arya replied. I just need 1 second. She reached the core, took the detonator and pressed it. Nothing happened. Kael laughed. It's locked to a voice command now, he said. Only mine. Rek stepped forward, holding a knife. I can fix that. Kael looked up. You'd kill me to win? Rek didn't answer. He didn't need to. But Arya stopped him. She looked at Kael, truly looked. There was no evil in him. Only a man who chose comfort over freedom. I won't kill you, she said. But you're gonna watch everything. You gave up burn. She slammed the emergency override on the signal console. It began to overload. Electric surges spread through the tower. Screens shattered. Sparks flew. The hum turned into a scream. And then, silence. All across the galaxy, humans blinked. The signal had stopped. Their minds were clear. Their hearts were beating again. Reinforcements arrived. The core spire fell. The war ended, not with a treaty, but with truth, with humans standing tall, with Arya leading the survivors out into the light. Kael was taken away. Silent, defeated, broken, and Arya stood where once she was sold, on a platform above thousands of freed humans. She didn't raise a flag. She didn't give a long speech. She only said one thing. Freedom isn't given. It's taken back. And the crowd roared, not in fear, not in chains, but in fire.